Was there a magic bullet in the Charlie Kirk shooting? Well, apparently there are some people who think so, including a gentleman by the name of Dr. Charles Martinson. We're going to talk about that and a whole lot more on this episode of Charlie Crimebuster, what some people call, well, they're calling it the fastest minutes in podcasting.
The views and opinions expressed in this presentation are solely those of the individuals participating and do not represent those of city, county, state, or federal law enforcement agencies, nor sponsors and platforms of this presentation. The Charlie Crimebuster name and all forms and abbreviations are property of its owner, and its use does not imply endorsement of or opposition to any specific organization, product, or service. All individuals described or mentioned in the presentation should be considered innocent unless or until found guilty in a court of law. This presentation contains adult subject matter. Listener and viewer discretion is advised.
Well, hello and welcome to Charlie Crimebuster. Well, the Charlie Kirk shooting continues to attract controversy. This week we have the magic bullet to contend with. This along with more Candace Owens rants. We're going to tell you all about that in just a moment. But first of all, let me take a moment to welcome you to the program. If you're a seasoned listener or you're a first-time listener, we certainly want to say welcome to Charlie Crimebuster. We're glad you joined the Charlie Crime train today. By the way, do me a favor, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. That way we'll be able to get an episode to you as soon as it is released. Also, let me invite you to join our sponsor, PeacemakerNetwork.com. It's PeacemakerNetwork.com. You can read all about how we help those men and women who run toward danger instead of away from danger. And we introduce to you our YouTube channel. Hope you'll check it out. Just go to YouTube, Charlie Crimebuster. You'll find us right there.
The following podcast is brought to you by PeacemakerNetwork.com. PeacemakerNetwork.com. Audio is provided by Pixabay.com. That's Pixabay.com.
Well, now another person's got into the Charlie Kirk bandwagon. That is a guy by the name of Dr. Charles Martinson. He holds a PhD in neurotoxicology. We'll tell you all about his own theory and introduce to you the magic bullet theory in Kirk's own shooting. We're going to do that. And we're going to cover another attack on the investigation of Charlie Kirk. And that is the theory, of course, introduced by Charles Martinson. But, however, we can't get away from the theories of Candace Owens in this case. Now, just last week, I told you something tongue-in-cheek. I mentioned that I thought that Candace Owens had used up all the theories. I mean, she was blaming Israel. She was blaming Egypt. She was blaming the Donald Trump. She was blaming the government. She was blaming everybody. She's just like throwing stuff on the wall to see if something would stick. None of it was backed by real collaboration to the point that it was verifiable. But she was throwing that stuff out there. Now, I have to admit, somewhat sarcastically, I mentioned I do not know that she could come up with anything else unless she were to come up that maybe there was a spaceship from outer space that landed there in Utah and space little green men got out and somehow they got under the stage and they did the shooting. And I did say that with tongue in cheek. But little did I know. I did not know that she had already said some crazy things about Elon Musk and others. For example, Candace Owens calls Elon Musk human alien hybrids. That's right. Oh, my friend. I cannot believe this, but I'm telling you this. There was a recent news summary. It says Candace's latest conspiracy theory is that Elon Musk, Sam Altman, and Peter Thiel are not human. Something in their eyes, she says. Those remarks came from early September 2025 on a podcast segment that Owens recorded for the Candace Owens Show. And that clip quickly went viral on social platforms. And they were reloads and all this sort of thing, and it got out there. Now, I could just do a Candace Owens with you and leave you with the fact that she said these guys must not be human. There's something in their eyes. But I'm not going to do that for you. She did follow that up with something like this. She said, well, I may be joking, or not. So just when you thought it could not get any more crazy, now she's back from vacation. And thinking that when Candace got back from vacation, maybe she might be a little more centered. But again, she's launched new stuff this week, again, with strong emphasis on that Egyptian Special Force airplane. This week, she actually doubled down on the theory. I mentioned this last week. But she brings in the point this week that somebody, quote unquote, told her, so it's got to be true, because somebody told her that on that Egyptian plane that we mentioned last week that actually flew out a long time before the event there in Utah, she says now that somebody, quote unquote, told her that there were special forces on that plane. And that even though that plane landed earlier, they did not depart with those special forces. The inference, what she's referring to is trying to plant in our minds that there was Egyptian special forces that had something to do with the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Now, again, folks, all this is unverified claims. Nothing based on verifiable reasoning. Do you realize how many people out there just make things up to be a part of a narrative? Do you know how many people are out there? You see, basically, Candace wants you and I to leave all the real evidence behind and build an entire case based on speculation and lies. So as I said before, I really do not know what I'm more concerned about personally. That she's saying all these things that are off the wall and that cannot be verified with investigation integrity, or the fact that so many people want to believe everything she says or that she rants about without ever checking it out. Now, last week I told you a little bit about this airplane. This airplane claim is unverified by aviation tracking authorities. It's unverified by independent aviation data or even mainstream law enforcement disclosures. The lack of all of this and the time mismatch issues, well, many outlets, as well as myself, classify this as a speculative conspiracy. It's not a substantial lead. These leads have been looked at by law enforcement, and there is nothing there. Now, I heard Candace this last week. She is daring. She's daring the head of the FBI to come on her show. She's daring the head of the FBI to speak about what she's saying. Now, who does she think that she is? She thinks that the FBI can just stop all because Candace Owens is saying something out there? Does she really believe that the world and the investigation should suddenly include her into all of the parts of the investigation? Law enforcement does not work that way. And she should know. She knows better than that. The reason she's putting those claims out there, she knows there's not a chance that they're even going to bother to even look at some of this crazy stuff that she's throwing out there. But on the other hand, we do have, my friend, a video of the man on the roof. We have a video of him jumping to the ground. Those images that were put online was recognized by this man's family who know him the best. There was a rifle found near the scene with his DNA on it. There was a towel with his DNA on it. There was a screwdriver left on the roof with his DNA on it. And then we have the fact that his own statements and own text that he did the deed. The text to his trans lover. The note that he left behind. And then he turned himself into the police. Into the popo. And yet Candace says these wild things, even that he wasn't there. No, he was at the Dairy Queen. He never even got there. Well, if so, how did his DNA there? Oh, somebody must have planted it. Of course, somebody must have planted it. My friend, I don't know how. I'm sure that no matter what I say on this podcast will change the minds of some people who are just bent on following conspiracies without any verification, conspiracies with any lack of evidence. Now, on Charlie Crimebuster, from the very day we've begun this podcast, we always follow the evidence. And if you follow the evidence, it does not lead you to some kind of conspiracy with Israeli people involved in the assassination of Charlie Kirk. It does not lead you to the Egyptians being involved in a assassination plot of Charlie Kirk. It does not lead you to believe that the government is involved in the assassination of Charlie Kirk. The investigation is very, very clear. But then something else comes along. There's now a PhD, Dr. Charles Martinson. And I call it the magic bullet, kind of a pun on it from back in the JFK time when they talk about that magic bullet, because he's saying that he doesn't believe that that bullet that came from that rifle was the one that killed Charlie Kirk. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to look at that. We're going to look at that. We're going to look at what he says. Now, he's a well-known person, but he's not well-known for following the correct way of scientific protocol. He's not well-known for the proper vetting of his theories. And so we will take time today to look at these three main claims, and we're going to compare that with the investigation. But before we do that, it's time for us to take a break, as we often do in the podcast, lighten the load a little bit, and smile a little bit as I now take time to share with you Charlie Crimebuster's Crazy Crook of the Week. Well, our Crazy Crook story has to do with Halloween that we just got through. And it's an amusing story. Maybe you could say it's life imitating art. Or perhaps maybe just a self-fulfilling prophecy. The guy is 18-year-old Jimmy Glover. He was driving home from a Thursday night party when the Port St. Lucie Police Department here in Florida pulled him over on suspicion of drunk driving. Now, that happens often, and of course on Halloween sometimes people drink and drive, which is very unfortunate on any holiday or any party time. But when officers asked him to get out of the car, well, they had to take a second look. Why? Because this guy who was pulled over for DUI, his costume that night was a prison inmate. That's right. They wrote, first arrest of the holiday came this morning as 18-year-old Jimmy Glover was arrested for DUI after leaving Halloween party and decided to get behind the wheel intoxicated. But they also posted a video of him failing the field sobriety test and could not help but poke a little fun at the costume. In fact, they said anyone dressed up as a cop should pull a shift with us. Rookies start midnight shift at 10 p.m. Just kidding. Enjoy the holiday. And then they encourage drivers to celebrate responsibly. And the footage is just really neat to look at. Because here is a Florida man in an inmate Halloween costume arrested for DUI. So my friend, this crazy crook who decided to dress up as a convict with a jail uniform all dressed in orange only to find himself taken to Popo. At least they didn't have to redress him, I guess. He is indeed Charlie Crimebuster's Crazy Crook of the Week. Well, now back to our main focus. One of the things I would like to say, I would like to talk a little bit about that rifle that they found, that 30-06. From Candace and some other people, they are saying, well, there's no way a rifle like that could make that shot. But my friend, that's not true. In fact, this rifle is very, very accurate. It's a bolt-action rifle. And while it will not fire as quickly, because you've got to cock it each time, it is extremely accurate. And law enforcement, they're looking at the ballistic trajectory analysis. They have to account for the building height, the shooter distance, 250 feet, the angle of impact, the matches, and the sniper's location. Martinson, he tries to make an analysis, but at the same time, when he does his analysis, he does not appear to incorporate the posture, the movements of Kirk, or the natural bullet deflection, all which are very standard in professional ballistic reconstructions. So here are his claims. Number one, Martinson claims the bullet could not have come from the rooftop sniper position. That's what he says. And when he says that, he basically argues that the trajectory and lodging of the bullet in Kirk's body indicate a much steeper or off-axis shot, rather than what the official rooftop sniper narrative allows. Now, that rifle that was recovered at the scene also had spent rounds consistent with a single high-powered shot fired. And they, again, as I said a moment ago, they looked at the building height, the shooter distance, the angle of impact, and they found it matched the sniper's location. Martinson analysis does not have all that data. He's taken his data from basically what he reads on Reddit and other places, and he does not have privy to all that. There's a second claim that he has, though, that also he's trying to get across in his theory. He's basically saying, number two, that the bullet lodged and did not pass through as expected from a rifle. But my friend, let me tell you something. Those who are in law enforcement who do this on a daily basis and who do all kinds of analysis with shootings and this sort of thing, they know that high-velocity bullets can fragment or deform on impact, even with soft tissue and clothing. That depends on the bullet design. Is it a hollow point? Is it a full metal jacket? There's also the distance and intermediary objects that it's going to run into. Autopsy reports cites and did confirm that a single rifle shot caused the fatal injuries, and it was consistent with the well-known ballistics of that recovered rifle. You see, Martinson's interpretation, well, it just assumes that all rifle bullets behave identically under all circumstances, and that, my friend, is far from the truth and ignores well-established forensic variability. It's variable. It varies with various things, soft tissue, this type of thing. The third claim that he says, number three, that only a small caliber close-range weapon could have caused that wound. And yet the recovered rifle and cartridge near the scene directly links that weapon to the shooting, DNA, and forensic evidence, and they tie it to the suspect. On the other hand, law enforcement tells us that the wound is fully compatible with the rifle, making Martinson's small gun theory inconsistent with physical evidence. Now, here is where we get down to the conclusion. His theory, Martinson's theory, relies on incorrect assumptions about bullet behavior and the way that it passes. It ignores standard forensic variability in a high-velocity rifle wound. It ignores that they recovered the weapon, the spent cartridges at the scene. And it ignores verified law enforcement ballistic analysis. You see, while he interprets the bullet's pass as impossible from the rooftop, all credible forensic evidence supports the official finding of law enforcement. Tyler Robinson fired the final shot from the reported sniper position using the recovered rifle. Now, folks, keep in mind there's so many other things here. Let's just talk about this a little bit. The law enforcement investigation puts the person at the scene. The law enforcement investigation puts DNA at the scene with the rifle, with the towel, with the screwdriver. Law enforcement investigation takes the very words that the suspect texted to his trans lover. Law enforcement takes into fact that they actually recognize their own son on the video. Law enforcement is linking this suspect to the shooting. What Candace Owens says, what Martinson says, what everybody else is talking about, all these theories, none of these theories have any of that going for them. Nobody can put someone else at that scene. Nobody can put another weapon at that scene. Nobody can tie anything else to the scene. Why are we ignoring the truth that's right in front of us? Well, you and I both know. One of the reasons we're ignoring it is because people love conspiracies. People love to say, oh, the government did it. People love to say, oh, Israel did it. People love to say, oh, Egypt did it. Why not just follow the evidence? The evidence, I believe, will prove without a shadow of a doubt, as far as reasonable doubt, without a reasonable doubt, it will prove that Tyler Robinson is the young man who thought that Charlie Kirk was spreading hate, and particularly it became personal with him because he was in a relationship with a trans person, and he thought that he had to be stopped, and the way to stop him was to crawl up on a roof, take a rifle, and shoot and kill Charlie Kirk. I believe the evidence will show this to be the exact way that Charlie Kirk died. Well, I said last week that I thought that last week would be the last week that we spend on this, but who knows with what's happening today. Of Candace Owens coming up with other stuff and all the other theories that are going out there. I'm just trying to say to all of our good friends here at Charlie Crimebuster, follow the evidence. Follow the evidence. It's all right to look at theories, just like we did with this Martinson theories that he's brought out. It's okay to look at it, but always take the evidence and follow the way that investigations follow a path of integrity. They have to, because they have to hold up in a court of law. I believe that these other things that you're hearing will not hold up in a court of law. In fact, some of them are just laughable, to be honest with you. So until this time next time, this is Charlie Crimebuster, thanking you for joining us with another episode of Charlie Crimebuster. This time we've talked about the magic bullet. The idea that this guy thinks that there's no way that that bullet could have shot and killed Charlie Kirk. And I believe we've refuted it. We'd love to hear from you. Reach out to me, charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. Till this time next time, this is Charlie Crimebuster reminding you, be safe, be alert, for the life you save may be your very own.
You have been listening to Charlie Crimebuster. We would like to thank our sponsor, the Peacemaker Network, and also encourage you to support the first responders, military, and law enforcement personnel by contributing to the Peacemaker Network. That's peacemakernetwork.com. All music and sound effects are courtesy of Pixabay.com. That's Pixabay.com. You can also support us by subscribing to our YouTube channel, tag @CharlieCrimebuster, and then click the subscribe button. By doing so, you'll be notified each time we drop one of our shows. Another more convenient way for you to listen to our podcasts, or for you to say to your smart speaker, play Charlie Crimebuster. If you have comments or suggestions, we would love to hear from you, so please send them to charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. That's charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. Or you can call or text us at 407-917-2211. That's 407-917-2211. Thank you for listening, and we hope that you will join us again for another exciting crime episode with Charlie Crimebuster.